Greetings, Mindcrafters, and welcome to another Minecraft discussion on this wonderful day here in Vermont. It's a little overcast, a little chilly, but we do that. We live closer to Santa than most people, so even though it's in the summer, it's one of the many nice things about Vermont is that we don't get a lot of hot. A little bit lately with the climate change, but you can actually wear a fleece sometimes. So anyway, this is Kimberly Quinn, and I am pumped to have this talk with you. So I think, as you know, I always try to mention the books out there because I read voraciously, which is part of this today's discussion. Is really how to get the most out of a good book, and I try to share these with people. So Greg McKeown is the author of Essentialism, right? The Disciplined Pursuit of Less, and then after that one, his book Effortless, which I'm dipping into now, is Effortless. Make it easier to do what matters most, and they go together like peas and carrots. And so this new mastermind, well, actually not new, I've been in it for about a half a year now, and it's just awesome. This mastermind group I'm a part of, they all read, and they read things that are positive and uplifting and promote personal growth and creativity. So, and that's also what I read on my own. So put it all together, and we're all sharing. I share what I read too that they haven't heard of, and it's just this wonderful pool of reading material that's really gives you a lift and pushes you forward. So Greg McKeown talks about just how to get the most out of reading. And I tell you, I don't know. I mean, at a fabulous 58, and my husband's a nutty historian. He, especially the 20th century presidents and actually the royals too, and American history. He's reading all the time. And so am I. We read different things. I'm constantly reading all things positive psychology and cognitive psychology. And, the younger generation, though, I don't think is reading books quite as much. And I'm thinking of my own students. They've said things to me because I use paperbacks for my Mindcraft course, Happiness Advantage being one of them, and Carol Dweck's book, about the growth and fix and growth mindsets. Also, Man's Search for Meaning. So they're all, just great reads. And I've had students say to me, all positively, like, I haven't read a whole book in forever. And they're only, I usually have first years. So they read, but they don't read books usually. They'll read articles, they'll read, usually online. But I get the feeling, and it's just from my own crew, so maybe that's it. But they go on and on about how much they've actually used the word life changing a few times. Well, with both of those books, that and Man's Search for Meaning, definitely. Viktor Frankl, of course, surviving the Holocaust and writing about just an amazing, amazing book that is, about how he held himself together with his positive mindset, just absolutely incredible. And The Happiness Advantage by Sean Aker, also incredible, and has also been referred to as life changing. And I think that a lot of the younger ones especially don't get what a big deal it is to read. So in his book Effortless, Greg McGowan talks about this. He's because, like, think about it. What amounts to a few hours, I think he says, the length of a full day at work plus a few bucks. You can gain access to what the smartest people have already figured out. That's the part I love about this. We're not reinventing the wheel. Other people have started businesses. Other people have written children's books. Other people have, traveled wherever you're trying to travel, and already found the best restaurants that are affordable, and already found the most, family friendly, child friendly restaurants and child friendly parks, and already found, the flip side of that, the not so good places, and other people have already written books about how to buy your first house, whatever it is, how to deal with teenagers, dealing with young adults going to college. And so books are just loaded, chock full with all this information that we don't need to, think of all the life minutes saved if you read something somebody else already figured out. I mean, it's just kind of like a no-brainer in a sense. Okay, so I'm jumping back in here. I usually do podcast episodes just all at once, just like any other conversation, right? Though our internet's a little bit on the fritz because we one of the prices we pay for living so far out in the country in this wonderful area in northern Vermont. So there's certain things you don't have much of, and we're okay with it. But the internet would be good if we could keep that rolling a little better. But not a lot in the terms of takeout and delivery, things like that. But wow, but we got the birds chirping, and they could really in the mornings could challenge the Boston Pops and New York Symphony Orchestra. It's just lovely. So small price to pay. So anyway, talking about um, Greg McGowan, I love this guy, and I'm really into his books, Effortless, and also Essentialism, and now Effortless. And he talks about how to get the most out of reading. And I was just kind of whipping through this book, and I just thought, wow. And as I mentioned, well, yesterday with my students, and it was a positive way because they really loved the books that I have for Minecraft. And for a book to make the cut for Minecraft with me, it has to be like outstanding, because I do read voraciously, and I have just a lot of good books. And so, The Happiness Advantage by Sean Aker, and also Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, and Carol Dweck. And I used to use one years ago by Deepak Chopra. I think it was The Way of the Wizard, if I remember right. Anyway, so but they did mention that was the first book in a few months. That's the first book I've read in a long time, and I have mostly first years. So they do read. I think they just read short things, articles, things online like that. I don't think this generation is much of a fan of reading full length books like those of us in our 50s, late 50s now do. And so I was looking at this, and Greg says that the typical American reads, or only partially reads, only 4 books a year. Like, wow. And then he also said that more than a quarter of Americans don't read books at all. And he also says that this whole trend is getting worse. So I'm glad we're having this conversation, because good old fashioned book reading, I don't know, I kind of think it's good for the spirit, good for mental health, just plain, good. So Greg goes on to say, he talks about, he's got 3 kind of tips or principles to really get the most out of your reading. And the first one is called the Lindy effect. And that is interesting. I've actually, to be honest, until this minute, well, actually, when I first read it, I read it before now, had not heard of this. So Greg says, use the Lindy effect. He says, this law states that the life expectancy of a book is proportional to its current age, meaning the older a book is, the higher the likelihood that it will survive into the future. So prioritize reading books that have lasted a long time. In other words, read the classics and the ancients. And I tell you, our youngest son is constantly, all 5 of our books, geez, all 5 of our young adults are readers, all 5 of them, and they all have different interests. The reason I went with our youngest son is because he reads a lot of the old stuff. I mean, really old stuff, like when Rome was at war with whomever, and cultures and civilizations I sometimes honestly haven't heard of. And he reads a lot of things that go way back, when different countries that aren't even countries anymore were duking it out, he's fascinating to listen to with it. Again, the other 4 read too. They're all different, interested in different things. Me, obviously, I'm interested in positive psychology and all things, brainy. And I think about this not on the level of the classics or the ancients, but it is true what Greg is saying, because just in my own world, when I go and do presentations, and I use sources for different things when I'm writing. And I know that, like, I talk about Claudia Black a lot, and she was back in the 80s, a pioneer for the adult children of alcoholics movement. And she's written It Will Never Happen to Me and a bunch of other books. And Janet Weichschlager, I forgot, she's dash something, another ACOA person. And that's just one example. And that obviously doesn't go back as far as, Dickens or Hemingway or anything. But those books have still hung around for 4 decades, 1, 2, 3, yeah, rough 4-ish decades, and people are still using them. And I think that there's something to be said for that. They kind of nailed it when they first, and also the codependency person there, Melanie Beatty, I think, right? Those codependent no more books are still, being read pretty frequently. And anyway, so 100% with that one. The next one that Greg talks about is read to absorb rather than to check a box. I mean, man, that just strikes a chord with me right there, because I don't want to do anything to check a box, honestly, if I can possibly help it. I'm just not, I don't want to go through life box checking. So he said, there are books I have technically read, but I can't tell you anything about them. On the other hand, there are books I may not have read cover to cover, but I return to certain chapters or passages so often that they become a part of me. Oh my gosh. And anybody who's listened to my episodes knows that with me. Like Sarah Von Brednick, I've dipped into her I was in my 30s, now I'm 58. So 20, ish years of hers, and also Richard Carlson's Don't Sweat the Small Stuff books. And I've got a bunch of those that I dip back into, for sure. And the Happiness Advantage, absolutely. And yeah, and I get what he says. They become a part of you. The Four Agreements is another one like that. Easy. I like the ones that have short little chapters, because I feel like I can kind of dip in and dip out. So Greg goes on to say, "Jeepers, that was my mind goes faster than my mouth when I get all jarbled and stutter a little bit, but we call that human. Who cares?" Okay, so he says, "Reading a book to earn the right of displaying it on your shelf misses the real point of the exercise." I think I know people like that. But absorbing yourself fully in a book changes who you are, just as if you have lived the experience yourself. Right now that takes me right to Harry Potter, honestly, and like Catcher in the Rye. If you go back, Huck Finn. Oh my gosh, there's so many books that just like total escapism. I mean, doesn't that feel good too? Especially, I mean, I think reading. Well, for me, always feels good. Though right now, since it's currently summer here in northern Vermont, and we have some of the most beautiful summers there could possibly be, because for the most part, we don't get a lot of real hot weather. I would imagine Alaska probably has pretty nice summers too. But anyway, great time for reading, because it's just the ambiance or the atmosphere is just so conducive to reading. The beach, the mountains, the back deck with an iced tea. It's all good. It's all good for atmosphere. And the last one, the third tip or principle that Greg talks about is to get the most out of your reading is distill to understand. He says, when I finish reading a book, I like to take 10 minutes to summarize what I learned from it on a single page in my own words. If you summarize the key learnings from a book you just read, you absorb it more deeply. Oh, that's true, I'm sure, from a memory standpoint. He says, the process of summarizing, of distilling, I have to tell you, distilling makes me think of moonshine, but I'm just going to stay with it, different context. Okay. The process of summarizing, of distilling ideas to their essential essence, helps us turn information into understanding and understanding into unique knowledge. Oh, there's no question. And in my world of cognitive psychology, Greg McGowan is spot on accurate. Because the more we push the brain, just like being in a gym, right? Sometimes people think if you just reread, and I tell my students that's the illusion of studying, because that doesn't take the effort. That's like, lying on a gym mat and thinking you're doing something, sort of. It may be a little bit different, but it's very similar. Unless you push the brain by pushing it to process, and especially to process things in different ways, that's like, it's like hitting the elliptical and then doing some free weights and pushing yourself to do it, lift an extra couple pounds, or do a couple extra miles on the treadmill or whatever. When we do that, um, then we are really pushing the brain to grow and to kind of retain knowledge. Absolutely. And then lastly for us anyway, because there's a little excerpt from his book Effortless. And the whole title is Effortless: Make It Easier to Do What Matters Most. Know what no one else knows. And so and it's not in a know-it-all way. I'm not going to read any more of that. I'm just going to talk about that idea. When we read, like my younger son I was using as an example, he reads stuff about, ancient wherever, and the stories he talks about are so interesting, because humanity doesn't change that much, right? So really, that's why it's so intriguing, is the dynamics going on with whatever leader, with whatever other leader, and the way people thought at whatever time, and the things they did because of how they thought. And it's all fascinating to me listening to him. And he got that from his dad because it's not in a know-it-all way at all, because that's not how I'm taking what Greg's saying. It's just you become interesting, just really, really interesting. And then, like, our son likes to tell the stories. My husband, it's not just me saying this. Yes, I'm biased, but lots of people, they just love, love, love his stories. And he reads voraciously, and he's very into history, especially American history, but also the royals and 20th century presidents. And so he's like a walking, in addition to be, I don't want to, he is very scholarly because he reads really good stuff. He reads a ton of biographies. It's also funny because when he tells stories, he doesn't sound like that though. It's very like he tells it in a storytelling sense. So he's kind of like a walking people magazine. He'll tell you about so and so president's nephew with complete accuracy, did da 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 da, and it's something that, whoa, really, seriously. And he'll know about, he knows things about mainstream presidents and first ladies and family of them and royals, that people don't know this stuff. They don't know this. So and so owned a cigar store and ran bootleg moonshine out of the back of it. I'm just making that up, but like, he has, because he reads and reads and reads and reads and reads, and he's so interesting to listen to. And so when we read like this, we often have these fun facts that other people don't know. It doesn't make you know it all. It just makes you fun. All right, so this is a good place to wind it up here. I promise you, I'm not getting any commissions from Greg McCowan or anyone else I talk about. Um, I do read a lot, and so I know I appreciate when people move books along to me. Once they get to know me and know what I would like, if they, which is 99% of the time it's the case. People don't usually. My students actually are great for this. My Minecrafters will constantly say, "Professor, have you read this or watched this or been here or whatever?" And they're typically spot on accurate. And some of it I've even used in future classes. And so, as I mentioned, this book, Essentialism and also Effortless, came to me by my new friends. I've been with this group for about 6 months now, and I'm getting ready to go away with them in just about a week-ish, and we're having a conference, and I get some good read tips from them, because we are all, have very common interests in, pursuing forward as people and in becoming better people, and creativity and success and everything like that. And so I get a lot of good reads from them, and I also share some of my good reads with them, back. So it's a win-win situation. Okay, this is Kimberly Quinn signing off from the beautiful, wonderful, ideal summer day in northern Vermont. Have a mindful day.